Welcome to Toxicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
So, Brett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's wild. You are the last of the Nolo boys.
You had Drew?
Yeah, I feel like Drew's been on the show, or he was
I
on in the
yeah.
Zoom days.
Oh,
Drew was on the show.
Drew was
in the
actually
Zoom days.
he was actually the first guest.
I don't know if
Probably.
he was the first guest, but he was.
I don't think anybody else was on in the Zoom days.
Yeah, I guess he would have been the first guest.
Yeah, first guest out of us.
Yeah, I think he was on a panel that we did because I remember talking about his story with driving the car into the lake kind of deal.
Yep. Classic.
Yeah. But man, like I was driving to record this and just kind of like, reflecting and thinking about you a little bit. And I was like, fucking like, wow, like Brett, I've known Brett now like 7 years, something like that.
Yeah. 2017.
Yeah. It's 2024. The math adds up. Right. And just like in so many different like ways, right? Like as a client, as an alumni, as an employee at Recovery Unplugged, as the lead singer from my kid's favorite band, like just all kinds of different things. I feel like it's been a journey for you, but definitely like a journey for me as well. Just kind of watching all your shit.
Yeah. I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Where I'll look around and I'm just like, how the fuck did I get here?
Yeah.
And I've been here for so long now.
Yeah. And like was Austin, Texas ever even like a thing that you thought about?
Not really. So this is interesting. I was talking about this with somebody the other day, but there was a day. So I lived in Toledo, Ohio for a while.
Wow.
I'm from Michigan.
That sounds horrible.
It was terrible, dude. It was terrible. I actually do kind of look back fondly on those days, but if you're from Michigan, the only thing you have is the shit on Ohio. So so fuck Toledo. But I had this apartment. I was in this situation where like there was like a night where I like overheard my parents kind of like shit talking me about like how I still lived at their house. I was like 20.
Like this fucking guy.
Yeah. And that we were like going to some holiday party at my like second cousin's house or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to drive separate. Like you guys go ahead. And then I just packed all my shit up and just left.
Just like, I'll show you.
Yeah. And they got back and I was just gone.
That's like the plot line to an 80s movie.
Yeah,
right?
It was awesome. But dude, so one of my buddies who was going to University of Toledo, where I'm from, UT is University of Toledo.
Dude, that drives me nuts when people are like UT and they really mean Tennessee. University of Tennessee.
There's too many UTs.
Yeah.
There's too many UTs.
There's only one right one though.
Honestly, University of Texas totally makes
It's
sense.
the dominant UT. Right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. University of Toledo. The fuck is that?
Honestly, sometimes I forget Toledo exists.
As you should, dude.
But so anyway, you call your buddy who's at UT.
Yeah, he goes to UT, and this kid that was his roommate, like got in a really bad car accident. Did that happen at that point? I think that is what happened. Anyways,
no one's going to fact check this.
The kid wasn't living there anymore.
Yeah.
His dad was like subletting his share of the apartment out for like half the price. It was like $360 a month. So I ended up getting in that apartment like the next day.
Yeah.
Which was just insane. I'd never not lived at my parents' house.
Really?
Yeah. This is the first time I had moved out. I had like talked about it a lot and like almost did it a bunch of times, but
see, I was enough of an addict at an early age that like the moment I could leave home, I did, mostly because I wanted to be able to just do drugs and do whatever the fuck.
Yeah. And that was where I was at this point. Like that's a whole other story when they like found out I was using hard drugs. I got away with it for a while without anybody really suspecting anything.
See, I never had that luxury because when I got into heroin, you know, I had friends that knew I was getting into heroin, right? And then I had a friend who died of an overdose when I was like 18. And it was probably maybe like 3 or 4 months into using heroin. And my real friends like called my mother and were like, hey, I was like, what? No, me?
Yeah. That's, I didn't have that until a bit later. But yeah, let me try to get through this Toledo thing and then I'll double back to that.
Let's do it.
Cause there's so many different ways I could take this, but, so basically I ended up getting that apartment and the difference was like credited to the account. So technically I could just not pay rent for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Or 3 months, I think. I think it was like, the whole lease was for 6 months.
Okay.
And
so they were expecting to eat half of the 6 months worth of
rent. The dad had already paid for it up front or something like that. And
Okay.
I was just responsible for half of it. But what I did was just live there for free and let that credit like hit the account every month. Yeah. And I was just getting fucked up. Yeah. Like I was just living in this apartment getting fucked up. And
were you working or what were you doing?
You know, here and there when I needed money. I would drive back to Michigan and do like snow removal for this landscaping company, which I did for a while. And I would go back and work with my old boss doing like construction stuff and
just like one-off kind of shit.
Yeah, I taught guitar lessons at a place called like All Star Music in Toledo for a while, which I got fired from at a certain point. But anyways, there was a night when I lived at that apartment, I think I was still underage at the time. I definitely was underage actually. And there was like this place that would sell me alcohol sometimes, but like if the wrong person was working, I couldn't get it. So there's one night where that happened and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go buy like 2 bottles of Robitussin and have myself have myself a lovely evening.
That's a party. Yeah.
And but I remember having this like vision when I was tripping that I like ended up in some big city and was like playing with a band and like sober.
Yeah.
I remember having that vision in this crazy like dissociative state.
See, I had a lot of visions when I was using certain drugs, right?
Yeah.
None of them were ever good.
I had a lot of not good ones.
Yeah.
Even in like the most like delusional states that I had been in, there was always this thing in the back of my head that wanted to get sober.
Yeah. See, and like I never wanted to get sober. You know, like I really like loved that life. You know, like to me, it was like I'm living in a fucking movie. You know what I mean? Like everyone else is living these boring lives and I've got this, you know, and in reality it was fucking lame, right? It was, you know, sitting around waiting for something to happen, score some dope and stick it in my arm, right?
Right.
But
it is really boring when you put it that way.
Yeah, but like, you know, my first driver to get sober was just to start avoiding consequences. You know, I hated being dope sick. I hated getting arrested. I hated, you know, having to steal and quit jobs and just all the bad shit that comes with using drugs. You know, it wasn't until I think the last time I was in treatment before I actually got sober, like I was in treatment long enough. I was in treatment for 11 months. And that was long enough for me to be like, man, maybe this could be okay.
11 months?
11 months, yeah. You've never heard me talk about the rehab in Mexico, bro?
Maybe I have, but I just did 11 months is so long.
I know.
The last time I went to treatment for 2 weeks.
But so let's, you know, so you mentioned, you know, being on hardcore drugs, and then you mentioned that you were already doing music lessons and stuff. So like now we know that sobriety has become a desire at some point in there, right? Mm-hmm. But was being like a professional musician part of like the dream? Like were you that kid that just always like in his room, you know, practicing, thinking, you know, I'm going to be in front of a crowd someday?
Yeah. Like I started playing when I think I started like messing around with the guitar when I was 10. I got like American Idiot by Green Day, Nevermind by Nirvana.
Yeah.
I like learned as many songs off those records as I could. And then I got a Strat when I was 11. Like I remember learning a bunch of AC/DC songs, and I had Appetite for Destruction.
Oh my God.
Guns N' Roses. I got Stadium Arcadium by the Chili Peppers. That was one album where I was like, oh, I want my guitar to sound like that.
Yes.
And I joined my first band when I was 12, and it was I was in 7th grade, and then like our drummer was in 10th grade, and the bass player and other guitar player were in 11th grade. Yeah. And so I was like, the little girl. Yeah. I had super long blonde hair. I'd always get mistaken for a girl.
Dude, that happens to to Jackson. Jackson gets it all the time.
Bro, I see it in him where I'm like, I was that kid.
Yeah. He doesn't give a fuck though. And I'm like, look, dude, you're gonna hit puberty soon.
I really didn't. Well, maybe I did at some point, but it that was like how people knew me in the scene in that area though. I was like just this little kid with like crazy long blonde hair and like
were you good? Were you like a fucking prodigy?
Prodigy's a strong word. I was
good for a 12-year-old.
I could play. Yeah.
Okay. And were y'all doing like talent shows at the Boys and Girls Club?
Dude, we did
that,
my first show I ever played. It was March 12th, 2008.
Yeah.
And I was 12 years old.
That's like right before I got sober.
Yeah.
I got sober in July.
There you go. That was a good year.
Yeah. And it's worked out for me.
Yeah. And we played a Battle of the Bands at Adrian High School in Adrian, Michigan. And there was like a bunch of people there, dude. Like a bunch.
Like it was
of
a big deal.
Yeah. And
well, for a small enough town, like the talent show is like a fucking music festival, right? Like
honestly, yeah.
10 bands? What?
At that point, I had gotten into like metal. Like I really liked like Lamb of God, Pantera, which I still do. Avenged Sevenfold was my first concert.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to look like Zakk Wylde, like that kind of thing.
You're trying to grow a beard?
Yeah, I was watering it every day and using Miracle Grow. But I remember like we went to McDonald's across the street like right after.
Yeah. And the McDonald's was popping.
It was popping, dude. It was like, 11 at night or something. And I remember like talking to everybody in the band, and I was just like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I legitimately knew that that's what I wanted. Yeah. And it never changed since then.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I had that same dream, right? Like very similarly, my friend's older brother was trying to start a band, and his dad had been like a cover band musician for years, weddings and semi-professional kind of musician. And he was a bass player. And so they had a drummer and a guitar player, and they needed a bass player. And I was like, I'll learn how to play the bass, right? I'd had a couple guitar lessons at one point.
Yeah. Well, and it's bass.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I was like, it's the bass, right? And so I learned how to play bass, and I was probably like 14, and these guys were like juniors and seniors. And we had originals and stuff, but we played a lot of 90s. We were talking about this, right? And we refused to play like the cover that everybody wanted. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like we wouldn't play Everlong, we'd play Hero. We wouldn't play Buddy Holly, we'd play Only in Dreams. Yeah. Right? People requested Pearl Jam, and we wouldn't play like Jeremy or Even Flow. We'd play the Oh where can my...
Yeah, the song that's not even their song.
Yeah, not even their song. Yeah. But we would play a lot at the bars in Laredo, and we had a standing gig on Wednesday nights, and then usually either Friday or Saturday we would play also, and they would pay us $400 for 4 hours of music for 4 dudes, right? So I was making like $200-300 a week, and I was 14 years old, and I was in the bars, till 2 a.m., right? Because we would play from 10 to 2. And like with consent from my mother, like my mom was fine with it. And I wasn't allowed to set up, like I'd go set up equipment, and then I had to get out of the bar because I was underage, and I was only allowed in there while I was working.
Yep, same.
And then as soon as we were done playing, I'd leave, and then they'd tear down. But there was always some motherfucker that wanted to get the 14-year-old drunk.
I had that a couple times too.
But I gave up on, but I didn't have chops, I still don't have chops, like I am the most mid guitar player ever, right? But, my goal was still to work in music, and I went to college for sound production.
Oh, nice.
But I dropped out because of, heroin. But yeah, I gave up on the closest I get is when I do that music is medicine thing and get to play that song in Spanish.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that whole part of that. Yeah. But yeah, I was listening to a Julian Lage interview earlier, and he's like an incredible jazz guitarist and like kind of just everything guitarist. And he was talking about just the beauty of whatever playing an instrument gives to you. Yeah. That just totally accepting that and loving that.
Yeah. And, no, it's when I make the time for it, at home to just play some Spanish guitar stuff. It's just something special.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So with these two dreams of eventually getting sober, and you mentioned Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? Now I remember being very into John Frusciante's heroin fucking albums.
Yeah. Narande Lads.
But you're talking about a lot of heroin addicts. You'd mentioned Nirvana, was there any part of you that was this is the path, the drugs and the music go together and I'm going to be able to make incredible music, even though John Frusciante's solo stuff is for the most part fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's either really cool or I appreciate it just for the insight into him as a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also don't know if I pronounced that album right. It's Narande Lads and usually a t-shirt.
It's in French or something.
Yeah. And then
I just keep hearing this one riff in my head of doon, 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 doon.
Oh, I love that song, actually. It's my favorite. I don't even know. Is that off that?
I don't know if it's off that album.
I think it is.
But it's from that era.
4-track recorded.
It's from 110 pounds, might die any day now, John Frusciante.
Yes. I started playing in a band when I was 12. And then I didn't get into drugs until I was 16. And it was almost I don't know, those things weren't connected. At least at first they weren't connected. Yeah. And I think at a certain point, maybe in my early 20s, I started to kind of almost use drugs and music together as a way to loathe myself.
Yeah.
And maybe I thought that I can make this sad music and that's I do remember having the thought and this is so it honestly, it makes me laugh in a way nowadays, but just if I die, this is a record of where I'm at right now or something.
Your fucking legacy.
It's who cares, dude?
Well, see, for me, they were so connected because, I didn't, I hate Alice in Chains, right? I never liked, the dark heroin albums, right?
Yeah.
I liked, Sublime, as cliche as that is, right? That idea of, that very romanticized kind of drug music. And I was listening to, I was listening to Sublime when I was 10, 12 years old, right? So, load up the bong, crank up the song. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I don't know. It definitely didn't start like that.
Yeah.
I started taking opiates because they were awesome.
Yeah.
The first time I got high on opiates, I took 20 milligrams of Percocet, which was enough to just fucking blast me.
Done.
Dude, yeah. And it was me and my friend Chris who ended up passing away. Oh. And we each took 4 or 5 milligram Percocet and we walked 10 miles.
Yeah.
Literally from his house into probably 5 miles into town or maybe 3 miles into town. Back
was there
to his
a
house.
goal here? Were you
we were
trying
just
to get French fries?
Dude, we were just walking and talking, bro. I think we walked to Taco Bell and then got there and we were I'm not fucking hungry. Are you fucking hungry? And we were no. But it wasn't And this is something that gets talked about a lot, but like most people think about opiates as like something that, which it was that it did get to that point.
Yes.
The first time I took opiates, it was like an upper.
Yeah, euphoria. You feel so fucking good.
I was so like, like just running my mouth, you know? And, and that was kind of the beginning of it. I was like, I didn't understand that this was a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that one could feel this good.
Yeah, and being like I think I was 16. I was 15 or 16. I'm pretty sure I was 16 when that happened. And that's just too young to realize that that's an option for your problems.
Yeah.
You know, a solution for your problems. Yeah. And then I met a guy at my work. I worked at a grocery store where my mom worked, and there was a guy that worked there who he was like, I used to buy weed.
Did you work at a Meijer?
No, but not too far down the road.
Okay.
There was a Meijer. How do you know about Meijer?
We went to the Electric Forest Festival up in Rothbury, Michigan.
Yeah, I know all about Electric Forest. I never went, but
it's fucking great.
Yeah.
But we went with a group of people that we met on Reddit. And it was like, oh, we're all meeting at the Meijer, and then caravanning in together. Mm-hmm. And me and Chelsea kept on calling it Major.
Yeah.
And then
that J's silent.
Yeah, and then someone corrected us, and we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest scene, too, because we met up at like 9 a.m. or something to go to this festival, and everybody's like in raver gear, all blurred out. Some people are high already, like wandering around the mayor, like buying ice and sodas and shit. And it's like a small town, you know. It's like these people, you know, these good Midwestern folks, are just like, what?
Electric Forest is interesting.
Yeah,
where it happens.
Yes.
I never went. I always wanted to go. I mean, I guess I still could go.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, well, if I'm not going to be fucking tripping on acid or something, why am I going?
I went sober. It was great.
No, I bet I would enjoy it. Like Tycho played one year. My friend Chris, the guy I was talking about, he went and just got like blasted on acid and was like, dude, it was incredible. And then I always kind of got scared of that though. Because back in the day when I had the option of going, it was like implied that I would get all fucked up. And I was like, I don't feel like being out of my mind in public like that.
No, well, I love festivals. I think you know this about me. And
I'm not a festival guy, deep down.
For me, festivals are very like freeing. You know what I mean? Like in a crowd that big, like the ego gets deflated for me. Like I know no one's looking at me. I know nothing I could do is gonna, you know, is crazier than what the guy hopped up on ecstasy is doing. You know what I mean? And I get offered drugs all the time. And like, especially like during EDM bands, I kind of lose it. and I don't listen to EDM really.
But live it's different.
And I've had people come to me and be like, what are you on, bro? I'm like, nothing. They're like, you're just like that. I'm like, yeah. But so you always kind of knew that the path you were on was not good and that you wanted to get sober. When do you actually start to try to get sober?
Dude, so that actually leads me to a story I was going to tell earlier. So there was a day where, I don't want to get like hyper specific on like drugs and the amount of drugs and stuff like that, but I think for this story it actually is important in a way.
Yeah.
Because, and this also speaks to like, this is when I was 18. And from 16 to 18, from like the first time I took the Percocet with Chris to like graduating high school, a lot had changed. You know, there was a phase where I wasn't doing it ever. It didn't start out like I didn't go insane. You know, immediately. I met that guy at that grocery store. I started buying pills off him, and then it started becoming more consistent. But by the time I was 18, I was really starting to like test my limits and like push the boundaries of what I should and shouldn't do. And there was this day where me and another one of my friends, we had 9 Klonopin and I took 5 and he took 4. And then we went to my cousin's house and I like found like liquid hydrocodone in her medicine cabinet, and like me and my buddy like put that whole bottle away.
Oof.
I blacked out for like 2.5 days.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like a death cocktail right there. You know, so blackout is lucky.
Here's the thing. I knew that I had to be at work at 4:30 p.m. that day. And we started at noon. We took the Klonopin at noon.
And your mom worked at the same place that you did.
Correct.
Ooh.
So she wasn't going to be at work at 4:30, but so I like somehow made it home, got ready for work. Like apparently my parents were like, "What is going on with you?" And I was like, "I'm going to be late for work. I got to go." I like rushed out.
See, it's probably more like, I'm going to be late for work.
Yeah, they evidently knew something was up, but got to work. All I remember is like my boss being up in my face at one point, like literally the entire day is gone. And there's two things I remember from that day. And it's my boss being up in my face, being like, "You need to get the fuck out of here." And then somebody banging on the window of my car like several hours later.
Wow.
And then like my mom showed up and like drove me home. Like that's really all I remember.
Yeah.
I had evidently like I fell asleep standing up in the back
of the stock room.
Yeah, I was like standing up, like completely asleep, and my boss was just like shaking me.
Yeah,
like
you need to get the fuck out of here.
And then the next day, I think I worked the next day, and I was still all fucked up, and I like didn't care that everybody was like, "Whoa."
Just front facing this corn.
Yeah. They like the label out.
Yeah.
And then like maybe it was the day after that, my parents are just like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
I had wondered if I had a problem up to that point, and like that was, I remember like when I sobered up and I actually like realized what had happened and like how dangerous and stupid it was, and I was like, "Oh, like I'm making some mistakes right now."
This is not good decision-making skills.
And they like made me go to like AA meetings and stuff like that. I went to one AA meeting.
Okay.
And I was supposed to like meet with this therapist. Where they fucked up though is they left it in my hands to attend this.
Yeah.
So I showed up one time. Well, so that day where I sobered up too, this is where my relationship with marijuana took a turn for the worse. Okay. Also, I went to my buddy Anthony's house and we were so stupid, but we always found like creative ways to make like gravity bongs in the kitchen sink with like an Arizona tea gallon and all that. So we were doing that, and I hit this gravity bong rip, and like normally I would be like, "Yeah, I'm totally fine with it." I had the worst panic attack I'd ever had at this point in my life. And like, cause I got all stoned, but then I also had the experience that had just happened in my head and like my parents' perception of me in my head and all this stuff. And the people that worked with me, their perception of me, all this stuff was in my head.
You just started hyperfixating.
Oh, bro. And well, I never was able to like smoke weed and enjoy it again.
That's how I was with psychedelics, right? Once I got into like hard drugs, like cocaine and heroin, psychedelics, every trip was like, what the fuck? Like you're destroying your life. Like this is.
I had that sometimes, but not always with psychedelics after that. I definitely had it sometimes.
Yeah.
But like I went to that first AA meeting of my life at 18, so high on weed. Like I was stoned out of my mind. And everyone knew.
Of course.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I had no idea what AA was or anything about it. Yeah. And everybody there was like some small town alcoholic. And I'm like, I'm like addicted. I didn't even know what that meant either at that point. But like, I take pills and all this stuff. And like, I felt so weird and out of place. And I think I did one session with this guy who was like also like chairing the AA meeting. Like, I don't know what the fuck it was. Or maybe it was like a support group thing, but it like felt like I don't even know. I was so high.
People were sitting in a circle talking about their problems.
And so I like attended one of each of those things and then never did that again. But so I stopped doing opiates though at this point. I didn't do opiates or benzos for 7 months.
Yeah.
Just on my own volition. But I got really into ecstasy.
Everything else.
And different kinds of psychedelics and ketamine and stuff like that.
Well, I think we do some gymnastics sometimes. It's like, oh, no. It's like, it's this drug that I shouldn't do. And I'm going to avoid doing that drug by doing X, Y,
exactly.
Z.
I substituted it with like Adderall and Vyvanse. And in my mind, I was like, well, these, in a way, like they were way easier for me to get away with at that point. Yeah. And maybe safer, if I'm being honest. Maybe safer.
You're much less likely to overdose.
Right. Combining opiates and benzos is not a good move. And then there was like one day where I knew my buddy got his wisdom teeth out. And I was like, what you got, man? I got really sick. I had like pharyngitis or something. I was like really sick. And pharyngitis is like it's like a cold basically, but like strep throatish kind of thing.
Okay, thank you for explaining because I
it was. I used to get it a lot when I was younger, but it was like it's like I don't know. It's like that though. Yeah. And I took work off one day because I was really sick, and I knew my buddy had opiates, and that was like started it right back up again. And then I shortly after that discovered heroin. Yeah.
And then heroin, you're done once you get to heroin.
Yeah, it was so cheap.
Yeah.
Until it was really expensive.
See, I grew up South Texas, like on the border of Mexico, so it doesn't get cheaper.
Well, I mean, it was really cheap until my tolerance didn't allow it to be cheap anymore. Yeah. Like when I first started doing it, I was like, $10. I get fucked up all week off $10.
Economically, it's a good decision.
And then by the end, it's like $300 will last me, 2 hours.
Oh my God.
Or something like that. Oh. Well, that's probably an exaggeration, but
let's start the recovery journey, right? So I know you go to treatment a bunch. I know at some point you meet
really.
At least a couple times.
3 times.
Yeah. And that's to the normal person, that's a bunch.
It's a few, yeah.
At some point you meet Ashley.
Yeah, round one.
Round one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right out of the gate. Yeah.
But so, I mean, talk just a little bit about like your treatment experiences and kind of what that was like.
Went to a treatment center in Michigan. Interesting thing too, psychedelic experience actually led me to go to treatment the first time. A really kind of negative that ended up being positive. It's like kind of like what you're talking about.
Bad trip made you decide to change your life.
Well, yeah, like I don't know. I saw some things in myself in a way that I hadn't seen that kind of scared the shit out of me. Yeah. In a way. Yeah. And I was like, it's time. Yeah. It's time to stop doing this. And so went to this treatment center like very quickly, like found it. And it ended up being like a Scientology rehab.
Oh, I didn't know y'all went to the Scientology place together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I met Ashley there, and I was like immediately like, I'm going to focus on her and not anything else.
Was it Scientology round 2 for her? Because she left and came back, right?
Same place. Yeah. I met her. She like gave me her number and then bailed.
Yes.
Yeah. And then like showed back up like a couple days later. And so
you decided to focus on her.
Yeah. So yeah, she also gave me her number, and I committed it to memory immediately and never forgot it.
Wow.
Because I was so afraid I would lose it.
Do you still remember that number? Is it the same number she has now?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'm not going to give it out,
no,
but yeah.
No.
Yeah, she came back, and then I was just like, dude, that place was a joke, if I'm being honest. Yeah. There were some really good people there. There were people there that were taking their recovery seriously. Yeah. I don't want to make it sound like that wasn't a thing. And I was in a way, but, it was a summer camp. There's like 150 people there, something like that. Yeah. And it was just like a fucking like, it was a summer camp. Yeah. I'll put it that way. But yeah, so I get out of treatment, like that place was like really trying to do everything they could to make sure me and Ashley wouldn't be together. Yeah. Rightfully so. Yeah. But like she went to a sober living in California, and they like said I could go, and then they're like, oh, your insurance won't cover something, or I don't know.
Yeah. And then those good out of network benefits.
Right. And then I was unable to go. And then so I like told my parents when I got out of treatment, I was like, well, I'm going to go to California. Yeah. And they were like, you totally shouldn't do that. And I was like, well, if you guys let Ashley move in here. I won't go. My parents are so like, I to this day cannot believe that they let that happen.
Yeah.
But they did somehow. So Ashley moved in with me and my parents for like a year. We were sober for maybe like a month, started drinking, started smoking weed. I actually started like finding, pills and stuff like that. And then we both started doing heroin together. And then, that lasted for like maybe 9 months or a little over that. She went back to treatment. I moved to like a suburb of Detroit called Canton with my band at the time, and was like, dude, I like somehow just cold turkey stopped doing like heroin, and we were doing fentanyl at that point too.
Oh my God.
And just smoked weed for like 2 weeks. Like to this day, I'm like, how did I do that? I think I was on Suboxone too, maybe, but
that probably helped.
Yeah. I like somehow got my shit together for like a little bit to move
together.
Well,
right.
I wasn't shooting dope.
Yeah.
And I moved into this house with
really
my
low
band.
bar.
That was me getting my shit together. I wasn't shooting dope for like a couple weeks. And just enough time to convince them that I was like going to be okay. Cause they didn't know anything about that whole thing. And they knew that I had problems with stuff, but I think they thought that I actually could just like snap out of it like that. And then, my buddy got me this job at a place called Shar Music in Ann Arbor. It was like a warehouse job for packing like violin and like certain stringed instrument things. And it was 10 minutes from where I'd copped dope. Yeah. And it was in Ann Arbor, and I used to cop in Ypsi. And I just one day I was like, I'm totally gonna get high right now. And then I relapsed, if you want to even call it that, after my intermission, basically, and started I'd done this before, but then at this point, my addiction had graduated to like speedballs, like exclusively. And it was getting nasty. I was getting high by myself. Me and Chris were getting high together sometimes, but most of it was just me like lying to everybody in the house, and like I was just spending a lot of time just isolated in the bedroom, like playing guitar and shooting crack and heroin.
I used to go to the movies a lot. I would lie to everybody what I was doing, and then be like, "Well, I got to kill some time somewhere."
Yeah,
and I would go to the dollar movies. Yeah. The last movie I saw before I got sober was the Russell Brand movie where he's in Hawaii with the
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A classic.
Saw that.
Honestly, that's a great film.
I don't remember much.
I think we saw me and Ashley, the last one we saw before we got sober was The Beauty and the Beast. Like the
live action one?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't remember.
I went to that with my children.
Yikes. But yeah, so, and then it had got to a point, like I always talk about this when, like I used to talk about this in groups a lot and stuff like that. But like, the last 24 hours of me getting high is like just burned into my memory.
Yeah.
Well, before I came to Texas, because I did relapse in Texas too.
Yes.
But we had this Halloween show at this place called Cotton Brewing Company. And so I sold my Gibson Les Paul and this Yamaha acoustic that my dad had given me.
Yeah.
Actually, my dad had given me both of those guitars. He bought that Les Paul for me Christmas, 7th grade. Had my dried blood on the headstock.
Oh man.
It was my guitar.
Yeah.
And I sold that and that Yamaha for $350.
Oh no.
Probably a $3,000 value between both of them. I put $20 of gas in my car, and I spent the rest on drugs. I think I maybe I gave the boys at the house like $100. I was so behind on rent at that point. And and I did like that point where I was getting high by myself, like the amount of drugs I was doing had really skyrocketed at that point. And it was like I did like $250 worth of drugs in like a day,
which is a lot.
Yeah. And then I remember we had that show, and like I could not stop shooting coke.
Yeah.
I could not stop shooting coke. I'm like every 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
And
because you're just chasing. When you shoot coke, you're just
bro,
chasing that first one.
It is the most evil drug of all time in my experience. It was,
for me, it's crack then shooting coke.
well, I was shooting crack or coke. It felt the same to me.
Yeah.
But just the incessant, like, I have to do that again right now, like immediately. Is so gross. But we were at my buddy's house, and we were all like getting our face painted for the Halloween show or whatever. We went to go load in our gear at the place. We went to go load in the gear before we got our face painted, and I like did like the last shot of heroin I had, and I had nodded out in the car, and I woke up to somebody pounding on the window, and they were like, "Get off that dog food, brother!" Like saying something.
It's just like
I remember they were calling it dog food.
The dog food. Okay.
And that's what it was. You know, the slang for that in Michigan at the time was dog. It was short for dog food. That's what.
Okay.
That's what people call heroin up there.
Sure.
Boy or dog food.
Boy.
Yeah.
You just call it hair. Well,
you know, coke was girl, heroin was boy.
Oh, okay.
Very, very black and white.
Yeah.
And, you know.
See, we would call it black or white.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's different up north.
Yeah.
But I just put my car in reverse and like just sped off like immediately. And I had like, I've nodded out with like a needle hanging out of my arm. Like the guy could see what was happening. And then like I drove to the CVS to finish shooting up.
Yeah.
And on the way back to my buddy's house, like a cop got behind me and then another car. I think this all happened.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this all happened.
Again,
no
one's fact checking.
It was starting to get weird though. Like with the being up for several days off the coke, things are starting to get a little weird. A car like merged between me and the cop flipped his lights on. And I was like, this is it.
Yeah. This is it.
I'm going down.
Yeah.
And he pulled that car over and I just kept driving. And then we played that show. My family showed up, like my grandma and grandpa were there and like all these people.
Because they wanted to see you play?
Yeah. Played the show. I went back to my parents' house. I had no gas in my car and I had gotten so good at dialing in that exact point where I was going to run out of gas. And I was just about there. I'm trying to scheme, like, how can I I'm racing before I get sick to figure out how I can get enough money to go get well. And I just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out.
There's nothing left to sell.
And that next morning, dude, I couldn't sell all my guitars because I was a working musician. Like that's how I made money at that point. And but that next morning I was like the sickest I'd ever been. And you know, I like was like shaking on the couch. My dad was like, "What is going on?" He knew. He totally knew too, but he wasn't just coming out and saying it. I was like, "I don't know, I'm sick or something. I caught something." I like projectile vomited, like, dude, like all the way across the living room. And he was just like, "All right, like, let's talk." And, I just started crying. I was like, I need help.
Yeah.
I'm so fucked right now. And then Ashley's sister, Nicole, worked at Recovery Unplugged in Florida.
Yeah.
So I called Ashley and because she was like getting sober again up at that Scientology place.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yo, like, can you help me get in somewhere?" And she's like, "My sister works at this place in Florida. I'm going to see if you can get in there." And then it was like, bam, boom, whatever. I was on a plane like the next day. I'd just show up at my buddy's house or my bandmate's house and just be like, "Hey guys, I'm going to Texas right now." My mom gave him like $200.
Like she felt so bad.
Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah.
I drank on the plane as much as I could. The drinks I bought on the plane too overdrafted my checking account to negative 500. It had completed the maximum amount I could overdraft my checking account. And I remember seeing the Austin skyline. That's such, like, in a way, it was such a cool experience. I know I was so fucked, but I had nothing to worry about except getting my shit together.
And you're driving down the airport on 71 and you see the
skyline.
Yeah.
Man, I was just like, this feels so good. And I was like, I was on Suboxone, so I wasn't sick. And I had a couple of drinks in me.
Yeah.
But just like on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
This feels right.
It sounds almost like a sense of like, oh, like I'm safe now.
Yeah. It was the first time in a long time. Well, it was the first time I got out of Michigan like that. Like I was like 1,300 miles away from where I had been for the last 22 years, you know. And it was
like,
so
where are all
sick.
these steers and queers they talk about? Where's the cows? Where's the cowboy boots?
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, that too. I was like, this isn't Texas, dude, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, and then the whole process started with meeting the guys, and Ashley eventually came down here, and that was a whole thing. Like, you know, like everybody was like, you need to leave her alone. And let her do her own thing. And then I totally didn't do that.
And now you're married.
And now we're married. You know, that was with me and Ashley. Like, I have a hard time recommending anything that we did to anybody, because I'm like, I just did the opposite of what everybody said the whole time, and it somehow worked out. You know,
there's many paths.
There was like Jen Holbrook took us under her wing, and that helped immensely. Yeah. Like having somebody, that's what I loved about RU at first too. It was like that the place that we were at in Michigan, they were doing everything, like manipulating things and doing all sorts of stuff to try to keep us apart. And when she was going through RU, I was in IOP, like Jen was just like, well, you guys are obviously doing this, so let's figure it out. Yeah. Like, you come meet with me once a week, both of you, and we'll talk about stuff. Yeah. That just felt so good to have somebody be like, I want to help you guys work this out, and not just say, no, you can't do that. Yeah. Which is what everybody tried to say.
I think that's something that we do at RU is like, you know what, like, this is a bad decision, but we're going to try to help you make this bad decision in the best way possible. Right. You know, or like, here's the plan. We're going to work on it. We don't think it's going to work.
Yeah. And it probably won't. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. And it did, like, we're lucky to not have died in the process.
Absolutely.
You know, there were times where I was like, resuscitating her, like, you know, she's like literally like her lips are blue and shit, and I'm like doing the sternum rub on her, like crying. You know, like that was a big part of us getting high together. It wasn't like we just figured it out and everything was fine. Like, it was a fucking nightmare. Actually,
it's fucking miserable.
Yeah. And then I got high again
later,
and a big part of that too was like, me and the boys had been together for so long, and then like that kind of fell apart. Not like our friendship, but like us living together.
Yeah.
Like, we moved out of sober living. We lived in a garage.
Yes.
For a few months. Richie went to Oxford.
Yeah.
Which was the right thing to do.
Yes.
You know, Richie, a little older, got a little more experience under his belt.
He is the wise one of the group, I feel.
He can be. He definitely can.
But that was in the middle of, Richie had a bunch of relationship stuff right around that time, I think, also.
I think that came a bit after.
Yeah.
Probably a while after, actually.
Was it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like a year or so. Maybe 2 years.
Oh, man, my timeline's all fucked.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy ride. But yeah, so me and our buddy Sean got an apartment together, and that lasted for maybe a month before, maybe not even a month. Yeah. We started getting high together. It was that time though that like we started getting high, and I pretty quickly, after like a week, I was like, this sucks. Yeah. Like, this isn't. Like, I was sober 9 months before that.
Yeah.
By so far the longest I'd ever been sober at that point.
Yeah.
I knew what that felt like, and it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good to have that, and to have it with like this family that we'd created down here and stuff. The dissonance that I felt between that experience and the experience I was having getting high was just too great for me to like comfortably continue.
Yeah.
I was like still meeting with like my therapist and IOP and my sponsor every now and then, just letting them know what I was doing. And like everybody was just like, what? I was like, yeah, man, it sucks. Like, I don't even like it. And they're like, all right, well,
do something.
Come back to treatment. And I was like, I don't really wanna though. And like I was kind of resistant to that for a little while. And then one day, Richie, Ashley, CJ, no, not Richie. Not Richie. Drew, Ashley, CJ, and Jay showed up at the apartment. I was all fucked up, and they're just like, all right,
we're going.
Let's wrap it up. And I was like, I'll go after our show at the Mohawk. I'll go Thursday. We have a Wednesday show at the Mohawk. And they're like, nah, we'll handle that.
Yeah.
Like, let's get you in there.
Richie and Drew can sing. We're fine.
And they did. And then Sean went that night. I went the next day. Yeah. I did wait. Ashley stayed with me. I continued getting high. Yeah. And she stayed sober the whole time through all of that, which was like crazy. And makes me feel bad remembering that I put her.
You put her in that position.
Yeah. That was really fucked up to do. But and then that was September 11th, 2018. That's when I went back through.
There you go. So coming up on 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And fucking thriving, right? I mean,
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. I mean, look, you just released your first like real full length album, like from a real studio with real producers and all kinds of. Y'all are about to go on tour. Mm-hmm. We've only got about like 10 minutes left, but I did want to talk a little bit about the album versions.
Yeah,
right. Definitely. I mean, from the outside looking in, right? It seems less heavy, more. There's more going on. I feel like there's a lot of layers in there, but I remember talking to Richie one time and calling y'all's music headphones music, and Richie was like, that's the biggest fucking compliment.
I know. I like that too.
I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of like what you see in this album, like how you see this album as being different from Where We Grew Up.
To me, it's a lot more mature in the sense that like Where We Grew Up was a lot of like, we were kind of doing our best like brand new impression is sort of how it felt.
Less totally dark than brand new. Brand new always had kind of like this. I've actually been listening to a lot of brand new.
I love lately. I got a whole brand new tattoo, dude. This to me, not to shit on Where We Grew Up, but like, I don't know. We definitely had a lot better of an idea of like how to write songs together this time around, and like. I don't know. There's like there are some really poppy songs, like Lost Pines, Sundowning. I think Sundowning is a pretty poppy song in like a sad kind of slow way, but a lot of like pop-ish stuff on the record. But it's like I don't know. You can tell that we've like learned a lot more about music. I think
it's definitely more of a musician's album than not like only for musicians, right? But like I think there's a lot more to appreciate as a musician. Like they did that shit there, or like the structure of the songs. Is really interesting. I think it's a happier.
It totally is. Yeah. It totally is. Like that's what we found out too. So what's kind of interesting about it, I think, is that Class 1 Dark Sky was the first song we recorded for it. It was before we even knew we were going to record an album.
Which is one of the darker songs, in my opinion.
Lyrically, yeah. In a way, but it like the music makes it feel happier.
Yeah.
In a way. It's not really...
It's got that house voice, that with that really bassy effect on the vocals on the bridge. I think
you're thinking of Drive By.
Am I mixing them up?
I think so. Class 1 is...
Wait for the
okay. Yeah.
I was thinking of the Loose Leaf Letter and the
that song is a little bit
dark.
That's
a really dark song.
There's like a funk section in it. You know what I mean? Which I love.
Yeah.
But so I think we recorded that. It must have been 2021.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It was like fall of 2021. Yeah. We did like the first maybe 7 or 8 songs throughout the course of like 2 years.
Yeah. And dropping those singles every 3 months or whatever.
Right. And then we finished though the rest of the album. Like we finished the last 6 songs in like a month.
Yeah.
In or maybe 2 months. So like half of the album took 2 years and the other half took 2 months.
Yeah.
which is like, we just got to a point, like, as far as the timeline was concerned, where everybody was just like, oh, we need to finish this like right now.
Yeah.
And we had like, which was really good for us to have a deadline like that. And
well, they say like, if you have 2 weeks to do something, it'll take 2 weeks. If you have 2 days, it'll take 2 days.
Yep. And we had most of the songs written and stuff. And I think in the process of that 2 months, we started to kind of like almost discover that this was more of like a concept album.
Yeah.
Because it's all 4 of us writing our story from the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. And it's like almost like, I like to think about it, and I think everybody in the band has a different view of it.
Yeah.
But I like to think about it almost like it's this one person that is this culmination of all 4 of our experiences.
Like if the 4 of y'all made a baby.
Yeah, it's like the story of this person that like is just figuring out like life and how to cope with like just what his fucking problem is. You know what I mean? And
I love that.
like that's what it feels like to me. And we put we'd like had this intro to our live set that became what we call Fermi 1. We ended up putting vocals to it and all that. And then Richie wrote this like beautiful, it's my favorite song on the record, Fermi 2. Richie wrote this beautiful piano part that is it's a reprise of Fermi 1. It's the same chord progressions and the same time signature, same melody, but different lyrics.
Yeah.
And we put that like towards the end of the album and kind of almost to like solidify the idea that it is like a concept album.
Like this is a different version of the first song.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think I go in waves of what I think about the album, but I'm really happy about it.
Well, I love it. I hope it gives y'all a ton of success. We just got the 5-minute warning, so we're gonna go into rapid fire questions super fast. I've been dying to ask you this one.
It's rapid fire question time.
Is Waning Arcana about Ashley?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of.
I'll take that.
Yeah. I think it's about, I don't even know anymore. I know that is part of it.
Yeah.
That is definitely part of it. And like the uncertainty of like who you're gonna be with or something like that.
Okay.
I don't even really remember though. That's
all right.
Drew wrote a lot of that too.
Okay.
You know?
All right, rapid fire. We gotta go.
All right.
Okay, Ben and Jerry's comes to you. They say they want to make a signature Brett ice cream. What do you put in it? What do you call it?
Oh my goodness, dude. I would probably do a blueberry cheesecake.
Okay.
And I would call it friggin' Cheese Whiz.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's very Midwest.
I don't know.
That's very Midwest.
That sucked, honestly. We're doing rapid fire, though.
It's rapid fire.
I'm not going to judge myself.
All right, you're having a terrible day, and you're trying to recenter yourself and get back into a good vibe. What's your go-to music for that?
Maybe like Sly and the Family Stone. I'm going to say Sly and the Family Stone.
Right on. All right.
Yeah.
And since we are tight on time, we're just doing 3 questions instead of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing we like to do before we sign off is just kind of give you the floor. If you want to leave a message to our viewers and listeners, tell people where to find you,
Sure.
anything you want to plug, go for it, man.
All right. A final message? Well, I mean, this is like a recovery kind of thing, so I think the biggest thing in me getting sober and like actually recovering and like becoming a person that I like was like doing something I want to do with people I want to do it with.
Yeah.
This is the biggest part of the whole thing. So that would be the thing I would say. Check out Nolo the band on all socials.
Yes.
The only lowercase Nolo in the biz.
Stylized.
And we had to fight for those lowercase letters.
Really?
They literally did not want us to have them. We would write it as lowercase and then they would publish it as uppercase, and we had to appeal it like 5 times.
Oh no.
It sucked. But we got them. But yeah, we just put out an album, Versions.
Streaming everywhere.
We're going on tour with the Unlikely Candidates starting July 21st at Tulips in Fort Worth, going all the way up through, We go to Wichita. We play Greeley, Colorado, Colorado Springs, Denver, Casper, Wyoming, Salt Lake City, Utah.
So you can find all that info on the Instagram.
NoloTheBand.com.
NoloTheBand.com.
Instagram at NoloTheBand.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
I think it's all on there. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
When you go to Colorado Springs, if you got time, go check out Garden of the Gods.
I will. My dad is coming to that show, and he lived in Colorado Springs for a few years back in the day. Yeah, he's going to give me the tour.
All right. Well, Brett, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, coming down here, dealing with my shitty scheduling skills.
The pleasure was mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we finally got you on. To all of our loyal listeners and viewers, wherever you stream us, don't forget to give us a like, follow, subscribe. Thank you for being, spending some time with us today. And as we like to say here on Talksicology, there is 1,000 ways in and 1,000 ways out. And we hope you find yours.